Welcome to Leading from the Front with your host, Tony Hunter, Chairman and CEO for McClatchy Company and founder of TWH Enterprises. Leading from the Front is a series of one-on-one conversations with diverse, talented business leaders. During these inspiring talks, Tony digs in to uncover their secrets to success in today's ever-changing marketplace and highlights how his guests lead from the front in various industries, sectors, and communities. So please, join us on learning how to lead from the front.
It's a pleasure and an honor to welcome my guest today. She's an accomplished executive, a change maker. She's also an executive to keep your eye on. Kelly Manthey is the CEO at Kin Carta, a global consulting firm. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
That really was.
I had to read that. That's a lot. You're a busy lady. Kelly, you and I have had the chance to get to know one another. I'm really honored to have you on today to talk about leading from the front with agility. And I couldn't find a better guest to talk about that in the role you're in today. But you didn't just arrive here. Like all of us, you've been on a journey. You've had many chapters in your career. So why don't you start by, giving us a little bit of background about how you arrived here and some of the steps you've taken to get to this role.
Yeah, sure. I always like to go back to something about where I started that is becoming more and more important in my life. The older that I get, and it all started in Cleveland, Ohio. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. And I don't think I ever realized when I left, I've been in Chicago for well over 14 years now, but building a family, and my career has really grown here in earnest. But the older that I'm getting, the more kind of foundational and fundamental my roots from Cleveland have really become, and the more that they're showing up in my life, and the things that growing up in the suburbs of Cleveland kind of taught me. So from Cleveland, diehard Cleveland sports fan still. Went to college, in the late 90s, and really followed a path that was technology led. So back in the late 90s, the internet was just becoming more mainstream and more accessible. And so new careers were beginning to crop up all over the place related to internet and computer technologies. And so I studied management information systems and jumped right into consulting, into Big Five consulting right out of college. And that first kind of touch or taste of what a career in consulting was like really had me hooked from the beginning. I absolutely loved the variety that it provided. And the fact that when you're a consultant, you have the unique ability and perspective to step inside of your client's world, help them with typically a very strategic, hard problem to solve, gain that valuable experience. And then you kind of take that to the next client, that experience, and they might be in a different industry, and you can almost see the same problem again from a different industry and inside of a different culture and inside of a different, just different environment, different constraints. And so I really, really enjoyed it. It was never boring to me, even if I was solving some of the same problems. And back in the 90s, it was all about getting websites up and running. And kind of the era of e-commerce and all of that, but no matter what, it never seemed like, the same kind of solving the same problem over and over again, because the beauty of consulting was that I was able to experience solving those problems for a wide variety of clients. And then I moved to Chicago around 2006. My husband's a Chicago native, and so we began building a life here. And I was fortunate enough to connect with one of my buddies from my Big Five consulting days. He's now the Kin Carta global CEO, Jay Schwan, and he was just starting, a company in Chicago that was named Solstice at the time, and he was just at the very beginning stages of it, and he was looking for kind of a founding team to bring on board. So I came on board as employee number one to really help him build that startup. And so through that experience, I not only got to continue to be a consultant and help clients embrace emerging technologies. We'd moved far beyond just the web at that point. Technology landscape's very fast and changes, but I was also gaining exposure to what it meant to build a company, all aspects of building a business, and thinking about new things. So in parallel with serving clients, I also had the opportunity to figure out how we grow and scale a business and play a meaningful role in that. And so that was really, really energizing to me. And Solstice now has become Kin Carta, part of Kin Carta. Kin Carta has grown. We call it a 1-year-old, 1,600 person global startup, because just February of 2020, we really launched the Kin Carta brand to the world. And so a company that was a portfolio of different brands has now executed its strategy to become a platform business. And so all of the things that made the different businesses special are now all part of the Kin Carta brand. And so we're able to bring all of those specialisms and bring all of that expertise across management consultancy, depth, so strategy, across really creating technology powered and driving technology change and technology transformation, and then experience transformation. We're able to bring all of that, and then data transformation as well. So we're now able to bring that full suite of expertise to our enterprise clients as Kin Carta, a global digital transformation consultancy. And so I'm still along for the ride of both serving our clients and getting exposure to some of their hardest problems, while also continuing to help build our business in a meaningful way for our people and for our clients.
Well, I'll tell you, a couple things jump out. Again, having known you for a while now, that the whole curious nature of how you are, you're curious, and you love a problem. You don't love the problem, but you love it because you know you could solve it. And now it's all coming together that you, in getting into consulting, you really fed those passions, right?
Yeah.
And I think we all find that it's like, wow, I didn't know I was so passionate about that till you get thrown into it. So that really resonated with me. And then I think being in at the ground floor and being able to grow with the company has, I think, given you this really broad understanding of the complicated nature of a large company, and that on the ground experience, or as I call it, School of Hard Knocks, that real life experience. Those things have now collided with you. You're in the middle of the hottest topic, right? You can't read anything without it talking about digital transformation, whether it's digital transformation or, in my case, digital disruption, being in the publishing industry. So you're in the middle of something that is really hot. It's in high demand, but it's also highly competitive.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk a little about, as Kin Carta has made this move to bring everything together, why you did that, and how it positions you in your mind to be one of the best.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons in a shift from a portfolio business to a platform business is really because we firmly believe that the whole was greater than the sum of the parts. And when you brought the different capability sets that we had across all of the legacy businesses, I'll call them, that made up the portfolio at one time, when you bring together those things with a single purpose, and they work together along a single purpose and single strategy, there was a lot of power in that. And what we realized is we had kind of all of the things that all the capabilities that companies need today to really compete in this digital first world. So the combination of the depth that we have in what we call our advised set of capabilities, or our strategic consulting arm, really helps the CEO with the organizational transformation that's needed in order to compete in today's world, and to think differently about your operating model, and to think differently about how do you take the ideas and the strategies around what technology could do and turn them into actions and outcomes. And we're very driven by action and by outcome. And then the second piece of our business is around the technology transformation. And so it's the actual doing of the strategy. It's the actual implementation of it. And so, being able to bring best in class, modern software engineering, best in class, cloud enabled and cloud native technologies, and being able to bring best in class product development expertise to help enable and execute on the strategies. That in and of itself is great. But when you add that to best-in-class strategy consulting, you really have something magic. And then the third piece, or the third pillar of it, is that experience transformation. And we call that our Connect set of capabilities. And that's really serving the CMO, the needs of the CMO. So connecting all of the experiences on MarTech platforms that typically the CMOs in charge of implementing. So we can serve the CEO, the CTO, the CMO, and now also the CDO, the Chief Data Officer, which is something that's really really beginning to pick up steam in the most mature enterprises who are looking at what the next leg of their digital transformation journey is. It's all around the data. And so through our data capabilities, we're able to now help serve those needs. So I think what really makes us special is the depth that we have in those areas, and the way that we take the onus of seamlessly stitching together those capabilities for our customers. Many other consulting firms have pieces of those capabilities, but they can often be hard to navigate for a customer, and they put the onus on the customer to figure out how to navigate that company in order to get the most value from the partnership. And we work really hard to make that a very, very cohesive experience for our customers.
Well, as an operating executive, you really touched on quite a few things that I know are highly valuable from my standpoint. It's one thing to have the strategy, but there's no good strategy that stays on the shelf.
That's right.
So you take the strategy to execution, which, and finding that way into the marketplace, into execution, bringing those tools that in many cases, the client's behind in those tools. I have found as an operator, it's hard to be at the tip of the spear on technology. You have to go elsewhere for that. And then, of course, data integrity, privacy. I mean, your head wants to explode when you start talking about data if you're an operator. So I could see how all those have come together. And what are some of the themes or some of the issues you're seeing as you're working with clients around this whole notion of how to address digital disruption and turning that into digital transformation? That's how I think about it. It's coming. How do you turn that into opportunity? Do you have 2 or 3 themes that you would identify that you've seen with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the climate that we're in today around COVID and hopefully beginning to come out of COVID, I think the thing that it's underscored for a lot of the leaders we work with is just the importance of technology on their agenda. Just having come from the last couple of months where really the only way you can interact with anybody, your employees, even your family, and your customers and everything was through technology, it really underscored the importance of those transformation agendas or those priorities that maybe were getting done in due course, but there maybe wasn't a clear prioritization around some of them. It really fast-tracked a lot of that. So we're seeing our clients really kind of double down on the customer touch points. So automation on the customer touch points, where can AI and where can a chat experience or a conversational UX experience start to stem volume that's now coming through the digital channels that before didn't come that quickly through those channels, or the volume wasn't quite as much. Call centers, customer servicing, those types of things. So we're seeing a lot of investment there. We're seeing continued investment in the infrastructure side and the modernization of the core foundations that a lot of these endpoints interact with. They just can't handle the volume anymore. And so if it was important before to start looking at your infrastructure and your architectures and to modernize those back ends, it's even more important now with the volume of things that are coming through it. So again, we're partnered with a lot of the major technology platform players, Google, Microsoft, VMware, and so looking at those stacks and helping our customers get the most value out of them. And then probably the third piece, and I've touched on this, but where we're seeing some of the most mature companies go is they're beginning to ask the question of what should I do with my data? And we call this kind of data fluency. We're now in the era of businesses beginning to build the same muscle that they built around building in-house digital teams and building that software engineering muscle as part of just the way they do business. They're now beginning to build that data muscle and beginning to look for help and look for partners like us to help them become more fluent in data, and then more fluent in exactly how data can help them drive the outcomes that they're looking for. So those are just some top level things that we're beginning to see.
Well, I see in the publishing sector, we're having many of those same discussions. As you said, the world has changed. The world will never be as slow as it is today, right? It just, we think it's so fast, but it's just going to get faster. And the systems usually lag the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that, I think that is a key. And then of course, data. If it's, you hear it once, you hear it 1,000 times, it's the king. It's at the core of your intelligence and analysis of the company. But now you have to worry about integrity of the data and privacy concerns. So there's a ton of things to be concerned about if you're an operating executive. So let's talk a little bit about leadership then. So you're leading the organization. Change is occurring fast. You're a change, I call you a change agitator. I've been called that. Change driver, whatever we want to call one another. It's all meant positive, of course, but you're always looking around the corner, over the horizon, and you're constantly trying to make your company better.
Yeah.
So as you do that, what are some of the things that you as a leader not struggle with, but have to be mindful of to balance that intensity with the people you have to bring along?
Yeah, it's probably the rate at which change can be absorbed. We're not shy about acknowledging that that change is the constant, and that we're in an environment that's fast moving and that is dynamic. And I think the last year has proven that to everybody. No matter which business you're in, you do need to be comfortable with the dynamicness of the environment that we're all in right now. But to add to that, we're also in a space of where great innovation's happening all the time, and where you really need to keep up. And that is our job. I mean, our job is keeping up so that we can not only keep up, but lead. That is our value proposition, is not just keeping up, but leading in the fast evolving space of technology. And so again, that's very dynamic as well. And then, we're a professional services firm. By nature, we're a people business. And so we're only as good as the last person that we hired. And we're only as good as the quality and the attention and the training and the way that the employee experience that we create for those people to thrive. And so that's dynamic, because those needs are changing all of the time. And so, I think as a leader, today, and in my business, the thing that I try to be very mindful of is, taking time to actually slow down for a minute and actually, encourage people to just sit with the change for a minute, and just kind of sit with it. And number one, acknowledge the great things that have happened, acknowledge the successes. And me personally, I can get very caught up in what the next thing is that we need to do. And I have to remind myself to sit with it, sit with what we just accomplished or where we are, and, talk to my team about doing that, and the company. But we can't stop thinking about the next thing. We can't stop moving forward. We can't stop going forward. So I think it's that balance, it's that tension between sitting with it and appreciating it, but you can't sit too long. You got to keep moving. And so, it's that healthy tension between those things.
Right. Well, I'm smiling because I have the same constant internal battle with myself. I don't usually smell the roses very long, because I'm going to find the next bouquet. And I like the notion of sitting with something and actually letting people absorb it, and having empathy for people, because change is hard.
Yeah.
even if it's constant. And that comes across in your comments. And I use the line, slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
From time to time, you just know your team needs a little bit of a respite, but you have to be, again, mindful and in tune with your tendencies and also the tendencies and the feelings of your employees. Very challenging, especially in a business like yours, where it's a lean forward, tip of the spear kind of business.
And
So
it's not just sitting with the good things that have happened either. It's sitting with the things that you wish you could do over again, or it's sitting with the things that aren't going as planned. And it's, so that you can learn from them. So that can be equally as important.
yes, I know that's one of your tenets. Not only just applauding what has gone well, but using that fail forward mentality of taking a failure or a lesson learned and making sure the whole team learns from that and you're better the next time. There's also a few other, things I know about your principles.
Oh boy.
There's this notion of you may sometimes be a little anxious about what's around the corner and over the hill. Why don't you just talk about a little about that? Your sort of how you have to manage, your tendencies as a leader.
Yeah, it's both. It's sometimes what could be perceived as, that I could perceive as my weakness can also be your greatest strength, right? It's that double-edged sword. And so I joke with my team and my peers all the time. Oh, anxious Manthey's here again. Maybe this is just anxious Manthey talking, but here's what I think. And it's really just acknowledging that, I am thinking 2 steps ahead, or this situation we're in feels close to this other situation that we've experienced before, and have we thought about that? And so it always comes from a place of wanting to really kind of protect and wanting to have us be ready and have us be ready for the next thing. And I've learned over the years that that's actually something that's pretty important in the role that I play today, is to make sure that we're ready, and to also bring the things that have been learnings from the past, bring them to the front and center. Now I've learned through some great coaching from both my team and others, the best way to bring those things up. So I'm always tuning my delivery of what my internal anxiety compass might be telling me. But overall, I've turned something that I thought could be maybe a weakness into actually what I believe is, something that serves me really well in the position that I'm in.
Well, I will just tell you, having been in management a long time, one of the greatest strengths of executives, in my view, is that agility. And that's agility only occurs when you're prepared.
Yeah.
And I think identifying what's around the corner and knowing the trends or feeling intuitively that you've been here before is where wisdom comes through experience. And in a lot of ways, you're right. Better to look out for that than to be unprepared, because when you're unprepared, then you are clearly playing defense. And I know you're an offensive minded leader. Yeah. And so that's what comes to my mind as I hear you say that. Then there's this, and again, guilty as charged here myself. I'm very aggressive. I like to set high goals, high expectations. I know you share that. But you also, I think over time, have talked about counterbalancing that, and how as a leader you've grown to understand and understand what it was like when you weren't the CEO, and that empathy point. So can you unpack that a little bit for me too?
Yeah, it's something that I've had to work at, and I actually really kind of poured myself into Buddhist teachings and doing a lot of reading. Pema Chodron is somebody that I turn to time and time again when I'm struggling, or when I need to gain new perspective about a situation. And I've found that, as hard driving as I can be sometimes, and as, thinking about the next thing, focused on, again, sitting with it, sitting in the moment, staying present, it gives you such a great perspective, and reminds me to be more empathetic to what things feel like to others around me, and actually how I feel. Sometimes I've realized, and COVID's taught me this, navigating the pandemic over the last year. I was on autopilot for a lot of it, for probably the worst parts of it. I did what needed to be done, dug in with my team, was taking care of my family, and just like constant forward motion. And it kind of caught up with me, a couple of months later, a delayed reaction of, how do I actually feel? Like, how am I doing? And so it's like a little bit all empathy for others starts with empathy for yourself. And I have learned that hard lesson over and over again, throughout my life, that until you show yourself any kind of grace, any kind of loving kindness, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And it is impossible to give anyone else any kind of empathy or any kind of understanding or anything until you have experienced giving yourself that same thing. And so that is something that is not second nature to me all the time. And then I have to work really hard at giving myself some empathy and just space to feel, just time to feel.
That's a wow moment in our conversation right there. I'm telling you, that was awesome and so well said. And it also just speaks to when you are a leader and you're also a mother and a wife, and the circumstances around your life are going so hectic, that being able to step back and do that is so important. And it could just be for an hour. It could just be, it isn't like a week of vacationing, right? It's just pulling back enough to realize, wow, I'm just making the donuts. I'm in the hamster wheel.
Yeah. 15 minutes.
But that was a wow moment. That was terrific.
Sometimes it's just 15 minutes, it's just 15 minutes in the day when you've got, some time on your calendar just to say, what just happened here? How do I feel?
Right, exactly. And then I know at your company, you believe it's so important, regardless of the role, that people are really connected to the purpose, the mission, that there's more than the rational side of the commitment and engagement of employees, but clearly emotional engagement and connection with the purpose of the company. So talk a little bit about how you do that at your company.
Yeah, well, we fundamentally believe that really business presents, being one of the greatest platforms for change, and that we have a great opportunity and also a responsibility in the world to use our resources and our talents to help make the world work better. That is our purpose, is to make the world work better. But that also means outside of the craft that we deliver, and outside of the deliverables that we're, actually delivering for our clients. So, we've gone down the path of becoming a certified B Corporation. And so if you're not familiar with this, companies like Patagonia and Athleta, those are certified B Corporations. And they mean that they are a triple bottom line business. They place equal weight on people, planet, and profit. And it's keeping all three legs of that stool in balance at all times. And so our ambition globally at Kin Carta is to become a globally certified B Corp, and we're doing it in segments. So just last month, our Americas division, which I'm responsible for, we just attained our B Corp certification. And so that is done through an independent accreditation through the B Lab, which is the agency that has the certification kind of protocols and framework, and they kind of dig into your business and they score you on all different dimensions of, social responsibility, philanthropy, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, we always kind of had this feeling of having a great culture. And we definitely, got feedback from our employees, and we just kind of felt like we were creating something special. And what the B Corp framework allowed us to do, we didn't know what the results would look like when we embarked on the journey, but what it allowed us to do was actually quantify that feeling and actually give us some real data. We were really high in some areas. We were not so high in other areas. And so, we're certified today. It was a great validation that we are doing things right. We're doing a lot of things right. But it also helped us uncover, okay, where can we be better? Where are our scores lower than in other areas? And so, so that really, out of that was born the more deep focus on something that also matters, to us, which is one of the key tenets of the B Corp, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, so we were able to then drill down into a very specific strategy around, pay equity and, just the small things inside of a company, like how are job descriptions written? What's the language that we use? How do we make sure that we're inclusive? How do we make sure that we've got the right, the right kind of culture and the right really tentacles into the right talent communities? What ambitions do we want to set? What will good look like, for us as a company when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion? So we were able to then really drill into, what are some of those goals that we want to set, and again, quantify it. And I think the thing I've learned through all of this is that a lot of times these efforts sit with a chief diversity officer, or they sit with an HR team. And what we've been very, very diligent about is these things, social responsibility, diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're not one person's job, they're everybody's job. But yeah, it does take, a person or a group of people to kind of steer it and set the goals and track and see how we're doing. But it has to become part of the fabric of the business in order to put a dent in it. And so we've worked really hard to make everybody feel accountable and feel a sense of ownership of what the strategies are. And I can tell you it's working, in terms of the questions that people are asking, or the, hey, slow down. I don't think I've seen enough diverse candidates. I want to slow down the process. I'm hearing that all across the organization, things like that. Or, what is this going to do for our carbon footprint? We're getting ready to hit the budgeting cycle. What are we going to budget for the B Corp initiatives that we want to focus on in our next fiscal year? And it's not me raising these things. It is, obviously I'm in support of them, and it's part of the strategy that I was involved in putting together, but I don't have to be the person that's reminding people we have to think about that. It's beginning to organically happen already. And so for me, that is just, it's so fulfilling. And it's just a wonderful testament to the culture.
Well, boy, there's a lot to unpack there, but here's how I'm going to unpack it. You're humble, but as you know, the tone at the top is critical. You also know, as a great executive, that you do set the priorities of the organization. And by identifying those things and constantly focusing on those, what you're reaping is the rewards. And you won't say it, but I will. That's why tone at the top around DEI is so critical. And you're right, everybody's job is to support that. And I would just offer this. I know you also know that that's part of being a great company. You can't be a great company right now if you're not focused on DEI. Impossible. You can be good, but you can't be great. So I think I applaud your efforts and your work in that area, but I know you're humble, but it starts with the tone at the top. So good for you. That's exactly the kind of leadership we need. That's leading from the front. That fits my definition of leading from the front. So let's talk one last thing before we wrap. So there's a number of people that will hear this that are what I call emerging leaders. And I'm focused on that. These folks sort of in the middle management, and they're trying to aspire to go to either the next level or to take on more in a world that, you can't plan more than a few years ahead. But as a leader, what advice would you give to those emerging leaders to prepare themselves to operate in this, ever-changing marketplace?
Yeah, it's make the most of the experience that you're having. I find quite often that people are, again, focused on what's the next thing? How do I get to the next title? What's the next level? What's the next, I need to get to that next place to get the meaningful experience. And we're very big on, stretching people and kind of pulling them in maybe before they're totally ready for something, to give them exposure, or giving people a seat at the table that may not otherwise have a seat at the table. And so some of the common advice that I'll give people when we pull in, somebody from somewhere in the organization to maybe help us run, part of our M&A process, for example. We pulled in a really great leader from our consulting organization, to help us run part of the M&A process. Her name's Francesca, so I'll call her out. She's been doing an incredible job. She hasn't led, I don't think I'd be surprising anyone if I said she hasn't led an M&A process before. But we pulled her in and said, do you want this opportunity? We need some help project managing some of these activities. And I look at someone like her, she's doing a phenomenal job. And I look at someone like her and it's like, now she's learning something else. Now she's just learned something else. Didn't need, a different role in the company, but was open to new opportunities and, leaned in to the door that opened. And so when the door opens, sometimes you just got to walk through it, without asking too many, qualifying questions. And it's like, you just kind of walk through it. And that's where you start to get some of the really rich experience. And I see that play out all over the place. And I've seen it happen in my own, in my own career. It's the door opens, I'm curious, so I walk through it. And lo and behold, I would have never picked that if somebody would have asked me that, but yet I just got a great experience, doing something like that. All the way back when I started my consulting career, can I tell you what my first project was in consulting?
Go for it.
It was working for a steel mill. And my first client was LTV Steel out of Cleveland, Ohio. And that was my client. Big, blue collar, kind of client. And I would have never in a million years, if somebody said, Kelly, you have a choice. You could go, your client could be a steel mill, and you're going to probably need to work on the shop floor a little bit and get some exposure there because the system you're implementing is, going to touch components there, or you could go work inside of a bank. I probably would have chosen the bank because it was more familiar and, seemed more, just aligned with business and, where I should be. But I can tell you, I carry that experience I got from building software to be used in the environment of the steel mill, and the people I met and the things I learned and the exposure, like that built, more experience in me than I could have ever imagined. And just being open to that. And again, just like walking through the door and make the most of the situation that you're in. Very easy to complain about things, very easy to find things that aren't working or aren't like you wanted them to be. But if you just look for what can I learn here? Like, what can I take from this? What's this going to build inside of me? Just kind of walk through the door and embrace it. You'd be really surprised with what you'll come out with on the other side.
And to the extent you're open to that, of course, you then get the thirst of being a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
And you build the breadth and depth of your capabilities, which over time then opens up way more opportunities for you because you're a much more well-rounded executive, and you'll get jobs you never thought you would ever have had. But you don't get them before you gain the experience.
Yeah.
And that's, I think these lateral moves, I know you've probably done this too. My lateral moves were terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have never in that moment have picked it myself. And you've probably benefited. We've talked about mentors. I've just have had really good mentors too, that say, hey, walk through that door, and help nudge me through the door. So, and I know you've got a few of those too that have helped you along the way.
Definitely.
So couple summary things. As you look at the sectors and digital transformation opportunities, what are the top three you as a company believe are in high demand for the kinds of services you provide? What would be the top two or three that you, as you look over the hill, around the corner, that you think are ripe for this kind of work?
We're doing a lot with financial services companies right now. So that remains probably one of our top sectors. Then it gets down into the B2B space, and you can break that up in many different ways. But the B2B space is obviously evolving and changing. As the consumerism of a lot of digital experiences and technology investments are creeping into becoming more prominent and matter more in that B2B world. We've got a lot happening, from B2B commerce. There's a lot happening in that space. And I think COVID only underscored the importance of, you can't just rely on your sales reps. You don't have to replace them, but you need to augment with other tooling that can help in that space. So the whole B2B space generally is really kind of blowing up. And then, we do a lot with precision agriculture. The farming industry is actually really one of the most technology advanced and innovative industries. And again, being very curious, it's just fascinating to see the application of technology to the field, and just how it helps growers. They're running businesses. The farmer is the modern CEO of their business, and they're equipped with some of the latest technology. And so, we're seeing a lot of explosion there as well.
Well, Kelly, I can't wait to get this posted. This was a terrific conversation. You are a terrific CEO. You're well suited to be leading through it, with agility through all of this digital transformation. Your company is doing great. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with me so we can share this with others that are on their journey. But, I just want to underscore, you could be results oriented and you could be people oriented, and you can go for profits and you can go for the planet. And you can also focus on DEI and know that that's going to make you a better company. So there's just a number of things through this conversation that resonate. And I appreciate you taking time to talk with me today. Thank you
so much, Tony. Thank you.